Hey guys, JD here, and today I'm going to share my top 10 maintenance tips for the Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet ski. Warning: these procedures require technical knowledge and special tools. Please make sure to consult a qualified Kawasaki watercraft mechanic before attempting to service your jet ski on your own. Always refer to the Kawasaki Watercraft Service Manual and your owner's manual for more details. Number 1 on the list is engine oil. In order for the engine to function properly, maintain the engine oil at the proper level and change the oil at least every 25 hours and the oil filter at least every 50 hours. For extreme duty machines, change the filter and oil every 15 hours. Not only do dirt and metal particles accumulate in oil, but over time, the oil itself loses its lubricative properties. Kawasaki Performance oils like KPO 10W40 has been specifically engineered for the Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet ski. Consistent use of these products meet or exceed warranty and service requirements and can help to extend the life of the engine in your Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet ski. Check out my comprehensive oil change video. Remember to always ensure that the engine is level before checking your oil level. This ski will take about 5 quarts with a complete filter and oil change. Always ensure the level is between the high and low mark on the dipstick. Do not overfill. Number 2 on the list is spark plugs. It is absolutely critical that you change your spark plugs every 25 to 50 hours to maintain absolute peak performance out of your Kawasaki Ultra 310's engine. The Kawasaki Ultra 310 takes an NGK PMR 9B spark plug. This is a platinum plug with a solid post terminal, and the gap should be between 0.024 and 0.028 inches. Make sure to use anti-seize or moly grease on the spark plug threads, and never tighten more than 115 inch-pounds. Remove your spark plugs and inspect the ceramic insulators. The appearance of the insulators reflects the efficiency of the combustion process. When the engine is operating properly, the plug insulators should be clean and a light brown color. Inspect the condition of the spark plugs, and if the plug electrodes are rounded, damaged, or carbon is accumulated, replace the plug. You can also run NGK Iridium CR9 EIX plugs in your machine. The cost per plug is less than the platinum plugs, and they offer a comparable level of performance. It's also important to remember that after servicing your spark plugs, apply a liberal amount of marine grease to the spark plug boots themselves before inserting them back into the head. Failure to do this will result in the boots tearing or breaking and becoming seized. Number 3 on the list is your battery and electrical system. Maintaining proper battery function is critical to ensuring that your watercraft functions properly out on the water. Kawasaki Ultra 310 features many modern high-tech features like a large color display, rear backup camera, audio systems, and electronic fuel injection. These all require your battery to be adequately charged in order to function properly. Due to the composition of the battery itself, batteries continually self-discharge. Electrical accessories such as digital clocks and even computer memory also draw current from the battery even when the key is switched off. Combine such key off draws with hot temperatures and a battery can go from fully charged to discharged in a matter of days. If your battery drops below 12.6 volts, do not head out on the water, but remove the battery from the jet ski and charge it first. Number 4 on the list is the exhaust filter. Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet skis feature a ribbon-type filter in their exhaust system. This filter is designed to prevent condensation from accumulating in the exhaust manifold and in the combustion chambers. The Kawasaki service manual states to inspect this filter every 50 hours. However, a K-Tech news bulletin released in 2021 pushed this maintenance interval to 25 hours. And I tell you, be prepared to replace this filter every 25 hours. Replacing the filter also involves replacing the gaskets. This is a very expensive process. In fact, from my experience, many dealerships couldn't even tell you where the exhaust filter is located. You can save about $500 if you do this service yourself using my comprehensive video. However, I recommend bypassing the exhaust filter entirely and going with something like the Kawi Performance Exhaust Filter Bypass Kit. Check out my comprehensive video on the KP Bypass Kit. I discuss the pros and cons and show you the entire installation process. Removing the factory exhaust filter may void your ski's warranty. It's really a shame that Kawasaki has not designed the filter to be more durable. The part itself is manufactured very poorly and does not even last until the minimum factory maintenance interval. Number 5 on the list is the Supercharger belt and tensioner assembly. Proper function of the belt tensioner is critical in maintaining peak performance out of your supercharger and engine. If the belt starts to slip inadvertently, you'll lose boost, RPM, and speed. From the factory, the tensioner includes a pivot bushing that must be greased regularly. Kawasaki conveniently fails to mention this in the service manual and owner's manual literature. However, don't be fooled into thinking that this is a non-serviceable part. If you have the factory tensioner in your ski, you must remove it at least every 50 hours to grease the pivot bushing. I provide a comprehensive video on completing this maintenance procedure. Personally, I highly recommend upgrading to the Kawi Performance Automatic Tensioner. This includes Japanese-made stainless steel bearings and does not require regular greasing. This also improves supercharger function by preventing excessive belt slip. Check out my videos on the Kawi Performance Automatic Tensioner and saltwater hardware package. Another important part of the Supercharger belt tensioner is the spring damper assembly. Now, as you can see here, the spring has a bushing on the top and bottom. Kawi Performance sells a high-performance, maintenance-free bushing kit for the springs. However, if you have a stock spring, there's a rubber bushing at the top and at the bottom. These periodically have to be popped out and greased, or else they will seize in place and impede the function of the spring and tensioner assembly. You also need to check your idler pulley, as seen here. I have a 3/16 stainless one. The stock idler pulley will need to be changed probably every year. And let's not forget about the Supercharger drive belt. It is critical to inspect this belt at least every 25 hours and ensure that there's no excessive fraying, tearing, or issues with the belt. Failure to maintain the belt properly will result in loss of performance. Check out my comprehensive video on changing the Supercharger belt. Even if your Supercharger belt and tensioner are functioning properly, you can still experience a loss of boost. Check your BOV to ensure that it's functioning properly. Also check all Supercharger ductwork, including the elbow going to the Supercharger relief valve, and all associated hose clamps. Check all vacuum lines, and don't forget to check the throttle body spacer. Number 6 on my list is jet pump and impeller. It's funny how often the jet pump and impeller are overlooked as sources of lost performance. To maximize the performance of your machine, inspect the jet pump every 25 hours. This involves checking the clearance between the impeller and the stator housing. If this clearance is out of spec, replace the housing and impeller, or have the impeller rebuilt. I also highly recommend fully rebuilding your jet pump every 150 hours, especially if your machine is used in salt water. Unlike other brands, Kawasaki jet pumps do not contain a wear ring, but instead have an integrated stainless steel liner. Because of this, when replacing the stator, you must replace the entire housing. This can lead to additional expenses. Note that even if you rebuild this pump entirely on your own, using my comprehensive guides, you can still spend upwards of $800 on the components. Skis that are ridden in shallow water with sand and rocks, skis that are left submerged in the water for extended periods of time, and skis that aren't flushed properly after use tend to experience more jet pump problems than those that are properly cared for. After you return from a ride and flush your ski, don't forget to grease the steering, trim, and reverse cables and their pivot joints. This is extremely important in preventing the brass quick connects on the end of these cables from seizing. Also, remember to inspect the drive shaft bearing carrier assembly. Failure of this assembly can cause water to leak into the hull, causing the supercharger belt to slip. Number 7 on the list is the fuel pump and fuel filter bag. Kawasaki recommends inspecting and cleaning the fuel filter bag every 25 hours of service. Unlike prior generations, 2022 and up Kawasaki Ultra 310s feature a restrictive chamber over the fuel filter, and the fuel filter itself is a finer mesh than prior generations. This requires the filter to be changed and inspected more often. When it comes to the fuel pump itself, Kawasaki utilizes a Mitsubishi UCT35 pump with a flow rate at around 110 liters per hour. In my opinion, this pump is a little bit small for high horsepower applications, so I suggest if you're going stage 2 or up, that you upgrade your fuel pump to a high flow pump, like those from Kawi Performance. Either way, if you're having fuel pump issues, verify those using a fuel pressure tester gauge. At idle, fuel pressure should be between 50 and 55 psi. Another benefit of going with an aftermarket fuel pump is the ability to use a fuel filter like this one here. This is an aftermarket filter from Kawi Performance, and you can see that it's twice the capacity of the stock filter, which means you can go longer between changes. Take the opportunity when inspecting your fuel pump and filter to check all fuel lines and fittings, and also check this breather port on your fuel tank. There's a check valve that allows air to flow in but does not allow vapor to flow out. The breather port is located right up here, adjacent to the handlebars, under the top storage compartment cover. Always use fresh fuel in your machine and never store it with old fuel in the tank. If you have a stock machine, you'll have no issue running 90 octane gasoline. If your machine is tuned, I highly recommend running no less than 93 octane premium gasoline. 93 octane gasoline in the United States does contain a minimum of 10% ethanol, so I use a product called K100. I add a bit of this in at every fill up, and it prevents phase separation of the fuel. I highly recommend you do some research on that product. Number 8 on the list is the Bilge Breather assembly. The Kawasaki Ultra 310 features a Venturi-style bilge pump that evacuates water from the lowest point in the bilge. This is especially critical for the Ultra 310 because any excess water in the bilge will dampen the supercharger belt, causing excessive slip. Use water or air pressure to ensure that both the feed line and exit line are clear, and that the breather hole on the Bilge Breather assembly isn't plugged. You can use a piece of copper wire or a pin to poke that hole out and make sure it's clear. If that hole is blocked, the breather assembly will not function properly. Also, make sure to check the line out at the jet pump, ensure there's no obstructions and that the hose is not kinked or damaged. Number 9 on the list is the steering pivot bushing and steering cable. Ensuring that both the bushing and cable are properly lubricated will prevent them from wearing prematurely. Kawasaki recommends lubricating the steering pivot bushing every 25 hours. Ensure that all components of the bushing are unassembled, cleaned, greased, and reassembled. Note that the steering cable at the jet pump should be lubricated after every ride. Pull the rubber sleeve back like this, apply a liberal amount of grease to the cable, and then pull the cable in and out. I've personally experienced that when you don't do this, the cable will tighten as salt water intrudes past the boot into the cable sheathing. Greasing it after each ride ensures that the cable stays corrosion-free. Number 10 on the list, and my final maintenance tip, involves flushing and fogging. Flushing and fogging your jet ski after every single use is one of the most important things you can do to maintain the reliability and performance of your Kawasaki Ultra 310. Make sure that you flush both the intercooler and engine separately. The intercooler should be flushed with the engine off. Using a salt sheeting product like Salt Off, Salt Away, or Waves RX Epic Flush helps to remove salt from the system, but is not completely necessary. Once you flush the intercooler, make sure to start the engine first before connecting water, and then allow the engine to run on the hose for between 5 and 10 minutes to allow all the salt that's in the system to work its way out. Once you've adequately flushed your ski, there's one final step, and that is probably one of the most critical, and that's to fog the Eaton TVS Supercharger. There are raging debates online about which fogging oil to use, but as long as you use a commercially available marine fogging oil, you should be completely fine. Adequately fogging the Supercharger after every single ride reduces mineral buildup and corrosion on the Supercharger's internal components. When you're done fogging and flushing, hit the throttle aggressively to clear water out of the water boxes. This is absolutely critical to reduce internal engine corrosion. Even come back the next day and blip the throttle again a few times to get all that water out. Well, those are my top 10 tips for maintaining your Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet ski. Make sure to log all your maintenance items in the back of your owner's manual for future reference, save all receipts for parts you buy, and make sure to document anything you do to the ski in a log. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more exclusive jet ski content, only on JD's Water World.